The most dangerous secrets are never the ones people deny. They're the ones people are afraid to even describe. And right now, something is happening inside the Brown family that feels less like a reality show and more like a slow psychological unraveling in real time. Because when someone says they were warned that telling the truth could trigger a police investigation, that's not normal fear. That's controlled fear. That's conditioned silence. And the question isn't just what Mykelti Brown knows. The question is why she believes saying it out loud could destroy everything. For years, the Brown family built their entire public identity around openness. They presented themselves as different, misunderstood, but honest. They wanted the world to believe they were showing the truth. But now that illusion is cracking. And the person exposing those cracks isn't an outsider. It's one of their own. Welcome back, Sister Wives Now. And what we're about to talk about isn't comfortable. It isn't clean. And it definitely isn't something this family ever wanted to become public discussion. Because Mykelti Brown didn't just hint at family conflict. She admitted that she was told certain words could lead to investigations. Think about that. Investigations. Not arguments, not drama, investigations. And immediately, people online noticed the same thing.
Without saying it.
Okay.
At the beginning of our Patreon, I say a word that Mary did to us kids. And because of that word, caused a ton of backlash and a ton of negative stuff. And we got in like severe trouble, family, other people. Like it was like, don't say that word because that word can completely end the entire show.
One viewer wrote, "Why would police get involved unless something serious actually happened?" Another said, "This family is hiding way more than they've ever admitted." And that right there is the turning point. Because when fear of law enforcement becomes part of your family's internal conversations, you're no longer talking about normal family tension. You're talking about power, control, and narrative protection. This isn't just about what happened. This is about why she feels like she can't say it. And the deeper you look, the more disturbing it becomes. Because Mykelti didn't say she didn't remember anything. She didn't say nothing happened. She said she was warned about the consequences of speaking. And that distinction changes everything. It reveals something much darker beneath the surface. Fear doesn't appear randomly. Fear is taught. Fear is reinforced. Fear is installed over time until it becomes automatic. And now, even as an adult, even as a mother herself, Mykelti still carries that hesitation. That alone tells you this isn't just about the past. This is about psychological conditioning that never fully went away. Because let's be honest about something people don't want to say out loud. Healthy families don't teach their children to fear the truth. Healthy families don't make their children feel like honesty is dangerous. Healthy families don't tie silence to survival. But here, silence became part of the structure. And viewers are finally starting to see it.
I'm speaking on my own personal experiences and opinion of Mary Brown. I don't want to discount my siblings' experiences with her, though. I don't remember Mary ever being physically. She was very emotionally and verbally abusive to all of us when we were younger, until I think we got old enough and she stopped because that we were all affected by her. Now as adults, she's not, nor will she ever be, part of my life, nor my children.
Across social media, the reactions have been explosive. This explains why the kids always seemed nervous. She looks like she's choosing her words carefully. This feels like emotional control. People are noticing the patterns. Now, patterns that were always there, but easier to ignore when the show framed everything as entertainment. Because entertainment distracts, but fear reveals. And what Mykelti revealed wasn't just information. She revealed the existence of a boundary she was never supposed to cross. She revealed the existence of consequences she was taught to avoid. And once viewers realized that, everything started to look different. Every interview suddenly felt more calculated. Every statement suddenly felt more controlled. Every silence suddenly felt intentional. Because when someone admits they were warned not to speak, the silence itself becomes evidence. Evidence of pressure. Evidence of fear. Evidence of control. And here's where it becomes impossible to ignore the bigger picture. This family didn't just exist privately. They existed publicly for over a decade. Cameras documented their lives. Producers shaped their narrative. Millions of viewers believed they were watching the truth unfold. But now, one sentence from Mykelti is forcing everyone to question how much of that truth was real. Because reality television doesn't just show reality. It protects certain versions of reality. And when those protected versions begin to collapse, the fallout isn't clean. It's messy. It's emotional. And it exposes things that were never supposed to be exposed. And suddenly, people are asking the most dangerous question of all. What else hasn't been said? Because once someone admits they were afraid to tell the truth, it confirms that there was something worth hiding. And that realization changes everything. It changes how viewers interpret the past. It changes how viewers interpret the family dynamic. It changes how viewers interpret every smile, every conversation, every moment that once seemed harmless. Because now, those moments feel different. Now they feel incomplete. Now they feel like pieces of a much larger story that hasn't been fully revealed. And the most unsettling part isn't what Mykelti said, it's what she still isn't saying. Because hesitation always has a source, and silence always has a reason. And whatever that reason is, it's powerful enough to still control the narrative today. But what makes this even more disturbing is how normalized that silence became inside the family itself. Not forced through violence, not forced through threats, forced through belief. Belief that speaking would destroy everything. Belief that silence was protection. Belief that truth was dangerous. And once someone grows up believing that, breaking free from it becomes one of the hardest things they'll ever do. Because the fear doesn't disappear just because you grow older. It stays with you. It shapes your decisions. It shapes your voice. It shapes your willingness to tell the truth. And now, for the first time, Mykelti is beginning to challenge that fear. But even now, you can hear the hesitation. Even now, you can see the caution. Even now, you can feel the invisible boundary she was taught never to cross. And that hesitation alone tells you this story isn't finished. Not even close. Because the most dangerous truth isn't the one that's spoken. It's the one that's still waiting to be revealed. And viewers are no longer looking at this family the same way. The trust is gone. The illusion is cracking. And the silence is starting to feel louder than anything they've ever said. If you're paying attention, you already know this story is far bigger than anyone expected. And what comes next could completely change how this family is seen forever. If you're ready for the truth that others are afraid to say out loud, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell icon so you don't miss what happens next, and tell me in the comments what you think Mykelti is. Still afraid to reveal? There's a moment when fear stops being invisible. Not when someone screams, not when someone confesses, but when someone hesitates. When someone pauses, just long enough for you to realize they're calculating the consequences of their own honesty. And that's exactly what people saw when Mykelti Brown spoke. It wasn't just her words, it was her restraint. The careful phrasing, the controlled tone, the awareness that every sentence carried weight far beyond a normal family disagreement. Because when someone says they were warned their truth could trigger investigations, you're no longer listening to casual storytelling. You're watching someone navigate landmines they didn't place but were forced to memorize. And the most disturbing part is this didn't happen overnight. This kind of psychological restraint is built slowly, over years, over conversations behind closed doors, over warnings disguised as protection. And once that mindset is installed, it becomes automatic. You don't even need someone to tell you to stay quiet anymore. You tell yourself. That's when silence becomes self-enforced. And viewers are starting to notice how deep that silence runs. Social media didn't just react, it exploded. One comment read, "She looks like someone who knows more than she can safely say." Another said, "This isn't just family drama. This feels like long-term emotional control." And that word keeps coming up, control. Because control doesn't always look aggressive. Sometimes it looks calm, sometimes it looks like guidance, sometimes it looks like love, but its purpose is always the same: to shape behavior, to limit exposure, to preserve the structure at all costs. And the Brown family structure was everything. It wasn't just their private reality, it was their public identity, their income, their reputation, their survival. Which means protecting that structure became priority number one, even if it meant protecting it from the truth. And here's where the contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. This was a family that volunteered their lives to the public. They invited cameras into their homes. They shared their marriages, their conflicts, their emotions. They wanted viewers to see their reality, but only the version they approved. Because real transparency isn't selective. Real transparency doesn't come with invisible boundaries. But this did. And now those boundaries are becoming visible. Because Mykelti's fear didn't come from nowhere. It came from experience. From understanding what happens when someone steps outside the narrative. Because stepping outside the narrative doesn't just threaten individuals. It threatens the system itself. And systems don't protect themselves quietly. They protect themselves psychologically. They reinforce silence through guilt. They reinforce silence through fear. They reinforce silence through consequence. And consequence doesn't have to happen often to be effective. It only has to happen once. Once someone sees what happens when the truth causes disruption, they learn. They adapt. They stay quiet. Not because they want to, because they feel like they have to. And that's the part that viewers are struggling to accept. Because people didn't just watch this family for entertainment. They trusted them. They believed they were seeing authenticity. They believed the emotional moments were honest. But now, those moments feel different. Now they feel filtered. Now they feel managed. Now they feel incomplete. Because authenticity doesn't come with warnings about investigations. Authenticity doesn't come with fear of speaking. Authenticity doesn't require silence to survive, but this did. And suddenly, people are questioning everything they thought they knew. They're revisiting old episodes with new perspective. They're noticing emotional reactions that didn't make sense at the time. They're noticing tension that was never explained. They're noticing discomfort that was never addressed. Because once you realize silence was part of the system, every moment of silence becomes suspicious. Every avoided topic becomes intentional. Every hesitation becomes meaningful. And the most chilling realization of all is this: Mykelti isn't the only one who learned to stay quiet. She's just the one starting to speak. Because patterns like this don't exist in isolation. They exist across entire environments. Environments where protecting the image becomes more important than protecting the individual. Environments where survival depends on maintaining the illusion. And illusions are fragile. They require constant maintenance. They require constant reinforcement. They require constant silence. Because the truth doesn't need protection. Only the illusion does. And now, the illusion is weakening. Not collapsing completely. Not yet, but cracking. Slowly. Visibly. Irreversibly. Because once people see the fear, they can't unsee it. Once people recognize the hesitation, they can't ignore it. Once people realize the silence wasn't accidental, they can't pretend it was harmless. And the most uncomfortable truth of all is this: fear like this doesn't exist unless something created it, something taught it, something reinforced it. And whatever that something was, its effects are still visible today, still shaping decisions, still shaping voices, still shaping what is said and what isn't. Because the most powerful control isn't physical, it's psychological. It convinces you that silence is your choice, even when it never was. And now viewers are watching more closely than ever before, not just listening to what's said, listening to what's avoided, not just watching what's shown, watching what's hidden. Because the story isn't just unfolding in words anymore. It's unfolding in hesitation. It's unfolding in restraint. It's unfolding in fear that was never meant to be seen. But now that it has been seen, it can't be erased. If you're seeing the same patterns, if you're noticing the same hesitation, if you believe there's more beneath the surface than anyone is admitting, make sure you like this video, subscribe right now, turn on the bell icon so you never miss the truth as it unfolds, and tell me in the comments what you think Mykelti is still being protected from, or what she's still being protected from saying. The tension doesn't end when the cameras stop rolling. It never ends. Because what Mykelti is describing isn't a simple family issue. It's a calculated ecosystem of control, built over decades, that shapes everything: who speaks, what is said, and when silence must be enforced. And that's the moment where reality TV stops being just entertainment. That's when it becomes psychological theater, a carefully choreographed performance with real stakes and real consequences, and people who've learned to navigate it at a cost no viewer could truly understand. Every social media thread about this blew up like wildfire. Fans were divided, shocked, outraged, and suspicious. One viral tweet read, "If Mykelti is afraid to speak because cops might investigate, what else have they hidden for years?" Another said, "Watching this show now feels like watching a house built on secrets slowly collapse." And the comments didn't just reflect curiosity, they reflected fear, confusion, and an awakening that the polished narratives we've been fed for over a decade might have been intentionally curated, that the family's reality was curated in a way that the public could never see the full damage behind the scenes. Because Mykelti's warning isn't hyperbole. It's based on lived experience. And let's be clear, this fear is more than just a protective instinct. It's indoctrination. It's internalized. It's systemic. And when someone internalizes that level of caution, every word becomes strategic, every disclosure a potential threat. You start noticing the restraint in interviews, the carefully chosen phrasing in social posts, the subtle pauses in conversations that hint at unspoken truths. It's not just a performance for the cameras, it's survival. And the irony? The audience that cheered for openness, for drama, for authenticity, is now questioning whether any of it was ever real. They're revisiting old episodes, dissecting interactions, searching for cracks. And every interaction that once seemed like ordinary tension now feels like a breadcrumb in a larger, darker narrative. Take the infamous episodes where arguments between spouses and kids erupted on screen. At the time, viewers assumed this was ordinary family tension amplified by filming. But with Mykelti's revelations, those arguments take on a new weight. Every raised voice, every emotional outburst, every tearful confession is now potentially a controlled display designed to reinforce the illusion that everything is normal, while hiding the subtle, long-term impact of manipulation. And the social media reactions continue to escalate. Clips of Mykelti speaking out have been reposted across Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Threads debating whether her claims are credible are thousands of comments deep. If the cops could investigate her for telling the truth, the whole show has been one giant cover-up, one user commented. Another said, This isn't just reality TV anymore. This is psychological warfare disguised as entertainment. And these are just surface reactions. The deeper understanding is chilling, because what the viewers don't see is the lingering, psychological shadow cast over the entire family. Mykelti's words imply more than past trauma. They suggest present control. That fear of speaking is not simply nostalgic. It's an active, ongoing mechanism. A mechanism that ensures stories remain curated, that scandals remain contained, and that the family narrative stays profitable and intact. It's also where criticism becomes complex. How do you critique a family that has consistently shown loyalty to its image, even at the expense of individual voices? How do you judge actions when silence has been normalized for survival? And how do you engage with viewers who feel betrayed, manipulated, and entertained all at once? This is where the commentary becomes necessary, where opinion must be clear, pointed, and critical. Because we cannot simply accept fear as anecdotal. We cannot excuse silence as inconsequential. And we cannot normalize a world where exposing the truth invites criminal investigations in the minds of those who lived it. There are examples beyond Mykelti, scattered across interviews, behind-the-scenes reports, and media coverage. Gwendolyn, another sibling, spoke vaguely about incidents involving discipline, never fully specifying, yet leaving enough breadcrumbs to suggest emotional and psychological impacts. Hayden, in contrast, recounted experiences of physical punishment and trauma, and yet Mykelti's recollections are met with caution, warnings, and the threat of external scrutiny. The inconsistency in treatment of their testimonies isn't coincidental. It's deliberate reinforcement of hierarchy, control, and narrative policing. Every social media clip amplifies the tension. Audiences watch Mykelti's restraint and feel the weight of what isn't said. They comment, speculate, theorize. Why? Is she scared of telling the truth? What really happened that makes her believe cops could investigate? These are not idle curiosities. They are signs that the audience is starting to piece together what years of careful image management tried to conceal. And here's the final layer that makes this story more than just drama. Mykelti isn't just exposing personal grievances. She's exposing systemic manipulation, the kind that teaches children to measure every word, evaluate every disclosure, and assess potential consequences before even speaking. This is generational conditioning. And the audience sees it, feels it, and is horrified by it. The irony of reality TV, of course, is that audiences crave these dramatic narratives. They thrive on secrets, betrayals, and revelations. And yet, when confronted with the consequences of these dynamics in real human lives, the enjoyment turns into discomfort, the thrill into tension, and curiosity into moral scrutiny. Because it's no longer entertainment, it's real trauma, carefully hidden behind carefully produced episodes and PR-managed interviews. The suspense builds because every word Mykelti utters could trigger more questions than it answers. Every public appearance forces viewers to reconcile the polished TV narrative with the raw, unspoken reality of psychological manipulation. And the fear that she describes isn't hypothetical. It's concrete. It's persistent. It's enforceable. And here's the crucial takeaway. This is the part viewers need to pay attention to. Not just the allegations, not just the arguments, not just the history, but the ongoing impact of silence, fear, and control. Because reality TV shows might end, but psychological conditioning doesn't. It lingers. It informs decisions. It shapes perspectives. It dictates behavior. And in the case of the Browns, it's embedded in the very framework of what the public has been allowed to see. The shocking, almost cinematic element of all this is how the audience becomes a participant, without realizing it. Every clip, every post, every discussion thread contributes to an ecosystem that validates the fear, amplifies the curiosity, and builds suspense. Not in the family's life alone, but in how the audience perceives them. Social media isn't just reacting. Social media is complicit. Every share, every comment, every like reinforces the high-stakes environment. So if you've been watching this story unfold, paying attention to the words that are spoken and the words that are withheld, make sure you engage. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on the bell icon so you're notified the moment more truths surface, and comment your thoughts. What do you think Mykelti is still hesitant to reveal? What patterns of silence are you noticing that the cameras never showed? Your perspective matters because this story isn't just being told. It's being pieced together by every viewer who refuses to look away. And now we dive even deeper into the part most people fear to confront, the intersection of fear, truth, and consequences. Mykelti's revelation that cops could investigate her simply for speaking her truth isn't hyperbole. It's a reflection of a system built to protect image over reality. Imagine growing up in a household where every word, every gesture, every emotional reaction is monitored, measured, and manipulated to maintain control. And then imagine stepping into adulthood and realizing that same household, same legacy, same system still holds power over what you can publicly disclose. That's the reality Mykelti is exposing. The intensity of social media reactions after her statements cannot be overstated. Twitter exploded with comments like, "If Mykelti gets investigated for telling the truth, this show has been hiding crimes for years." TikTok users created threads dissecting old episodes, highlighting moments that suddenly seem sinister under this new lens. Instagram comment sections flooded with disbelief and outrage, viewers tagging each other. "Did you see what she said? This changes everything." Every post, every comment, every share amplifies the tension because the story is no longer fictional. It's an unfolding investigation in the court of public opinion. And the pattern is relentless. For years, fans were drawn to the drama of the Brown family, the spats, the rivalries, the emotional highs and lows. But now, with Mykelti's words, viewers are forced to question what was staged, what was real, and what was hidden in plain sight. The show's glossy exterior masks decades of control tactics that have conditioned children to silence, obedience, and compliance. Every innocent squabble, every funny argument, every orchestrated family dinner now looks like another layer of careful management, a stage set to conceal deeper truths. Consider the specific incidents Mykelti mentions: discipline, emotional abuse, and control over small acts like eating or bedtime routines. On the surface, some of these examples might appear trivial, but when placed in context, the culture of obedience, the fear of retribution, the indoctrination from childhood, they are not trivial at all. They are microcosms of an entire system designed to produce fear, guilt, and submission. And for viewers watching years of sister wives unfold, the shift is profound. Those who laughed at minor disputes or quirky parenting moments now see them as indicators of a controlling, manipulative environment. And the criticism is clear and sharp. Mykelti isn't just recounting personal grievances, she is highlighting systemic issues. Social media users are calling it out. This isn't just a family issue, this is a blueprint for psychological manipulation. One user tweeted. Another posted, "We've been fed this polygamous family drama as entertainment, but it's really about control, fear, and silence." And the emotional tension among viewers grows with each revelation. Every clip of Mykelti speaking, every discussion on her Patreon, every interview with other siblings adds layers to the story, building suspense and keeping the audience on edge. It's also impossible to ignore the implications of her fear of law enforcement involvement. This isn't just about a household rule or family dynamic, it's about the chilling effect that fear has on speaking the truth. Mykelti's hesitation, conditioned over years, illustrates the enduring power structures at play. She knows that revealing what happened could destabilize relationships, trigger unwanted attention, and challenge long-held beliefs. And the fact that she even hesitates to speak freely tells us something critical. The legacy of control extends far beyond the cameras. The emotional weight is undeniable. Mykelti's words carry the subtle tremor of trauma. The audience senses it, feels it, and reacts. Clips shared online are dissected not just for content, but for tone, hesitation, and nuance. Every pause, every careful phrasing, every moment where she avoids specifics becomes a point of discussion. She's clearly terrified of repercussions. One comment reads, "But why? What's the secret they're hiding?" Fans are left holding the tension, waiting for the next disclosure, aware that even small admissions can carry enormous impact. And here's where critical analysis comes in. The family's legacy, built over decades, is interwoven with public perception and financial incentives. Fear of exposure isn't irrational, it's strategic. The narrative control exercised over years of filming is still being enforced subtly through emotional pressure, potential legal threats, and the maintenance of a curated public image. Mykelti's courage to speak, even partially, disrupts that carefully maintained ecosystem. And the audience is compelled to pay attention because this disruption exposes the tension between reality, media representation, and personal truth. Consider the historical context as well. Polygamous households, particularly those tied to strict, fundamentalist beliefs, have a documented history of prioritizing obedience over individual welfare. Mykelti's fear reflects not just a personal experience, but a broader social pattern. Children conditioned to silence, adults conditioned to conceal, and communities conditioned to protect their image at all costs. And social media amplifies the tension, creating a feedback loop where revelation generates scrutiny, scrutiny generates fear, and fear generates silence. The suspense intensifies because Mykelti's disclosures are incomplete. She reveals enough to ignite speculation, enough to challenge assumptions, but not enough to provide closure. And this is intentional, not maliciously, but strategically. Her restraint keeps the audience on edge. It forces viewers to engage, to speculate, and to participate in the unfolding narrative. The tension becomes participatory, a living, breathing aspect of the story that extends beyond the show itself. And this brings us to the emotional core. Mykelti's words resonate because they are authentic. Her fear, her caution, her hesitation, they are all real, lived experiences, and audiences respond viscerally. Comments reflect empathy, outrage, shock, and disbelief. "I can't believe someone could be afraid to tell the truth about their own family," one user writes. Another, "Watching this makes me rethink every episode I've seen. What else were we never meant to know?" The narrative technique she embodies, partial disclosure, emotional honesty, strategic silence, creates suspense that rivals scripted drama. And for fans who have followed the show for years, this isn't just compelling storytelling. It's a revelation that demands attention, critique, and reflection. Because the stakes aren't just about television ratings, they're about truth, accountability, and psychological freedom. And finally, as we process the weight of Mykelti's revelations, the audience is left with a question. How much of the family we've been watching is real, and how much has been carefully constructed to maintain control, profitability, and reputation? Social media debates continue, engagement spikes, and every comment thread serves as a witness to the suspense, tension, and critical reflection this story evokes. So if you've been watching closely, if you've felt the tension, if your mind is racing with questions about what's real and what's curated, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on the bell icon, and comment your thoughts. Below, what do you think Mykelti still isn't revealing? Which patterns of control are most shocking to you? Your perspective keeps the conversation alive because this story isn't over, and the public deserves to witness every twist, every pause, and every truth waiting to be told. The weight of what Mykelti has revealed cannot be understated. We've all been conditioned to see the Sister Wives family as a form of entertainment, a polygamous household with quirky drama, playful spats, and melodrama that fills reality TV screens. But now, with the revelation that simply exposing the truth could trigger a police investigation, the entire lens shifts. This is no longer about entertainment. This is about fear, power, and control. And make no mistake, the implications are seismic. Social media is ablaze with reactions. On Twitter, hashtags like #SisterWivesTruth and Mykelti Speaks began trending almost immediately after the statements aired. Fans are dissecting every old clip, cross-referencing episodes, pulling quotes, trying to connect the dots. Remember, Episode 5, Season 11, that argument now seems sinister, one user tweets. TikTok creators are creating mini-documentaries, analyzing Mykelti's tone, her phrasing, and her pauses, suggesting that every word carries the weight of years of suppressed trauma. Instagram threads explode with screenshots, fans debating whether previous conflicts, discipline moments, or family disagreements were just TV drama or something much darker. And that's the chilling part, the fear isn't abstract. Mykelti's claims show that children in this family are trained from birth to internalize the idea that truth equals danger. The very thought that speaking honestly could result in law enforcement intervention is enough to silence voices for decades. And this fear has real psychological consequences. Imagine being raised to believe that your reality, your trauma, and your lived experiences are not only invalid, but punishable. That's the level of emotional manipulation being uncovered. The examples she gives, though subtle, are enough to paint a stark picture. Mykelti recalls being disciplined for seemingly trivial acts, controlled over dinner, bedtime, and minor misbehaviors, with strict rules enforced in ways that went beyond verbal reprimands. On the surface, some might see it as normal parenting, but the combination of fear, indoctrination, and the threat of retaliation reveals a pattern of systemic control. And now, when she speaks out, that pattern becomes visible, shocking audiences who assumed the reality they consumed was benign. Criticism of the family is pouring in, and it's sharp, almost brutal in tone. Social media users are questioning the moral responsibility of those involved. How can a family prioritize their image over children's well-being for decades? Another tweet demands. The audience tension builds because the narrative Mykelti presents doesn't resolve neatly. It is fragmented, incomplete, but undeniably impactful. And that fear resonates far beyond the show. It strikes at universal experiences of control, silence, and the consequences of speaking out. Suspense builds further because Mykelti's voice conveys both caution and bravery. Her hesitation, the careful phrasing, the small pauses, all of these are deliberate. Every word she chooses carries emotional weight, creating a narrative that is both raw and gripping. Viewers lean in, not just to understand what happened, but to feel it. And the social media landscape amplifies that feeling. Every share, every thread, every reaction video extends the suspense, creating an ecosystem of tension and engagement that feels almost theatrical. The public response isn't just about shock, it's about accountability. Fans are demanding answers, dissecting the legacy of control within the family, debating the ethics of the show, and asking how such a system could persist for decades. The commentary ranges from outrage at the family's potential complicity, to empathy for the children and adult survivors, to disbelief at how fear was normalized as a mechanism of control. And this layered response keeps viewers emotionally invested, constantly reflecting on the juxtaposition of reality TV entertainment versus the darker truths Mykelti exposes. At its core, the drama Mykelti is revealing isn't just about her family. It's about broader patterns of abuse, silence, and fear that transcend one household. It's about how public personas can mask private pain, how media can commodify trauma, and how social systems can perpetuate silence under the guise of protection. The story she tells is harrowing, and the tension it creates isn't manufactured. It's organic, rooted in lived experience. And for audiences watching, it's impossible to ignore the emotional gravity of her words. As we process the revelations, the audience is left questioning their own assumptions. Were the moments we laughed at really funny, or were they carefully curated distractions? Were the conflicts trivial, or did they mask something far more serious? And most importantly, what else is still being hidden? Social media commentary keeps the suspense alive, with threads like, "If she's only revealed part of the story, what does she still fear to say? And what are the repercussions for speaking the truth after years of indoctrination?" And the story intensifies because Mykelti's words challenge not just family dynamics, but societal complicity. The public has consumed this show for years, and the tension now lies in reconciling the glossy, televised image with the reality of fear, control, and psychological manipulation. The emotional stakes are enormous. Fans are reacting with disbelief, outrage, empathy, and fascination, often simultaneously. And that combination of emotions is precisely what makes this story viral, suspenseful, and impossible to ignore. So, as the weight of Mykelti's revelation settles in, and as viewers grapple with fear, truth, and accountability, the call to action becomes unavoidable. If you want to stay on top of every twist, every revelation, every nuance in this unfolding saga, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the bell icon so you never miss an update, and comment your thoughts below. What do you think Mykelti is still holding back? How far does this legacy of control reach? Your voice is part of the conversation because this story isn't over, and every perspective adds fuel to the suspense that keeps this saga alive. The tension doesn't stop here. Mykelti Brown's revelations are like a slow-burning fuse. Every word she shares adds pressure, sparks outrage, and challenges the audience to question everything they thought they knew about the sister wives' family. And make no mistake, this isn't just drama for TV. This is fear weaponized. Fear that has been cultivated over decades, fear that shapes behavior, manipulates perception, and silences voices. The fact that she claims law enforcement could be involved simply for telling the truth highlights the extremes of control and indoctrination in this family, and the ripple effect on viewers is immediate. Comments across YouTube and Twitter are filled with shock and disbelief. If this is true, how did this go on for so long? Imagine being told your truth could get cops involved. It's terrifying. Social media has become an emotional battlefield. TikTok users are dissecting old footage, highlighting moments that now feel sinister under the new lens of Mykelti's words. Reddit threads explode with debates about legality, morality, and the ethical implications of polygamous households in reality television. Fans and critics alike are digging deep into season after season, trying to decode which moments were harmless and which were potentially manipulative or abusive. Every debate, every post, every reaction video builds suspense. It's no longer just about who said what on the show. It's about the very real consequences of raising children in fear and how that fear can follow them into adulthood. The emotional weight of Mykelti's story is staggering. She speaks cautiously, yet with unmistakable conviction. Each pause, each careful word reflects not uncertainty, but survival, an awareness of the storm her honesty could unleash. And, as viewers, we feel that tension viscerally. Every revelation triggers a wave of empathy, outrage, and curiosity. Social media amplifies this tension because it allows the audience to engage, speculate, and react in real time. Fans are dissecting everything from her tone to her phrasing, trying to determine what is said, what is implied, and what might still be hidden. Criticism of the family continues to mount. People are questioning the moral compass of parents who prioritize image and control over the well-being of their children. Tweets like, "This is more than just TV drama, this is systemic manipulation," and "The family's fear tactics are shocking and unacceptable," illustrate the growing backlash. And that backlash fuels suspense. Audiences are invested, not just in the drama itself, but in the potential fallout, legal ramifications, family confrontations, and the ultimate reckoning for years of silenced voices. Every new comment and post adds another layer of tension, keeping viewers on edge, desperate for the next revelation. What makes this story so gripping is the balance of fear and courage in Mykelti's narrative. She speaks from experience, from a place of survival, yet she navigates a minefield of potential consequences. That tension between truth-telling and potential retaliation creates a compelling, almost cinematic narrative. Viewers are drawn in not just to witness the drama, but to feel the stakes herself. The fear, the caution, and the courage all create an emotional roller coaster that commands attention, encourages engagement, and fuels endless discussion across social media platforms. Audience engagement reaches its peak because the story is unresolved. Mykelti gives us just enough to shock, to intrigue, to provoke debate, but not enough to close the chapter. That uncertainty keeps viewers coming back, discussing theories and dissecting every nuance. Reddit posts speculate on what other truths might be hidden. Twitter threads debate whether TLC, the family, or the legal system could intervene. TikTok. Creators create mini documentaries that speculate on every word, gesture, and episode in light of Mykelti's revelations. And that speculation is the heartbeat of suspense. It's what keeps this saga alive, viral, and constantly trending. The societal implications are enormous. This isn't just reality TV drama, it's a reflection on systems of control, generational fear, and the consequences of silencing truth. It's about power dynamics, psychological manipulation, and the intersection of public image and private trauma. And the audience feels it because the story resonates beyond the show. Comments reflect that resonance. This isn't just about sister wives. It's about every family that hides behind fear, one viewer writes. Imagine how many other voices are silenced in the name of tradition, image, or control. Another adds. And yet, despite the fear, Mykelti's voice pierces through. Her willingness to speak, even cautiously, ignites conversation, debate, and critical examination of the family and the show. Social media buzz amplifies her words, turning her story into a shared cultural moment. And as viewers, we are both witnesses and participants, engaging with her revelations, theorizing about unseen details, and reacting to the tension she creates. Every post, every comment, every discussion fuels the narrative, keeping audiences glued, emotionally invested, and hungry for the next disclosure. The critical takeaway is clear. Mykelti's story is more than entertainment. It's a lens into a world of fear, manipulation, and control that has been obscured for years, and the suspense lies in the unknown. What else is being hidden? What truths remain buried? And how far-reaching are the consequences of decades of silence? Social media, audience engagement, and reaction videos all amplify this suspense, creating a feedback loop that keeps viewers deeply invested. Every interaction, every debate, every tweet or comment adds another layer of emotional tension, ensuring that this story remains compelling and viral. And now, as the weight of this narrative settles, as the audience reflects on decades of hidden dynamics and suppressed voices, the call to action is more critical than ever. If you want to stay on top of every twist, every revelation, and every moment of tension in this unfolding saga, smash that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the bell icon so you never miss an update, and comment your thoughts below. What do you think Mykelti is still holding back? How deep does this legacy of control go? Your voice is part of the conversation. Don't stay silent because the story is far from over.